Hey everyone, and welcome. If you're digging into your AWS certification studies, you already know that storage is a huge topic. So today, we're going to fire up the ovens and really master one of the most fundamental services out there, AWS Elastic Block Store, or as you know it, EBS.
Now, to make this all stick, I want you to imagine your entire AWS environment is a cloud kitchen. Makes sense, right? And in this kitchen, your EBS volume is the main pizza oven. It's that reliable, high-performance workhorse that's bolted right onto your virtual servers, and it's where all the real cooking happens.
So, before we start whipping up some amazing applications, we really need to understand our equipment. What's this oven actually capable of? So let's pop the hood and take a look at the key features that make EBS so darn powerful.
And you know what? Each one of these features fits our kitchen analogy perfectly. Persistent storage, that's like knowing your dough won't disappear when you turn the oven off for the night. High availability is like having a backup generator built right in, so you're never down during the dinner rush. You can also make your oven bigger on the fly, lock up your secret family recipes with encryption, and take snapshots to save that perfect pizza creation. Yeah, EBS is built for the pros.
All right, so we get the oven. Now, what do we actually cook on? Choosing your volume type is kind of like picking the right pan for the job. I mean, you wouldn't use a giant sheet pan to bake one tiny cookie, would you? The same exact logic applies here. And trust me, this is a critical concept you have to know for the exam.
Okay, listen up. If you only remember one thing from this entire explainer, make it this. SSDs, or solid-state drives, are all about handling tons of small, fast things at once. Think of a crazy Friday night with hundreds of individual pizza orders flying in. On the other hand, HDDs, or hard disk drives, are for moving huge amounts of stuff in one go, like getting a massive truck delivery of flour and cheese for the entire week.
Let's break that down just a little bit more. IOPS stands for Input-Output Operations per Second. This is your pizza order metric. It's not about how big the pizza is, it's about how many separate orders you can push through the kitchen every single second. So you should be thinking about transactional stuff, like database queries or the boot volume for your operating system. Anything that needs a super fast response.
Throughput, though, that's your ingredient delivery metric. We measure this in megabytes per second. This is all about how wide the door to your storeroom is. How much stuff can you move in or out all at once? This is absolutely perfect for what we call streaming workloads. Think big data processing, data warehouses, or analyzing massive log files.
So let's look at our fast, sleek metal pizza pans, the SSDs. You've got your general purpose volumes, which are fantastic all-rounders. They're great for development or most day-to-day apps. But when you have that mission-critical database that absolutely positively cannot slow down, you reach for provisioned I/O apps. Think of these as your custom-engineered, high-performance pans that guarantee you a certain level of speed. And here's a really cool feature to remember. Only provisioned IOPS volumes support something called multi-attach, which lets one volume serve multiple instances at the same time. And just how fast can these things get? Well, the top-of-the-line provisioned IOPS volume, which is called IO2 Block Express, can hit a mind-blowing 256,000 IOPS. That's 250,000 separate read or write operations every single second. It's just an incredible amount of power for your most demanding applications. Now, let's switch over to our conveyor belts, the HDD volumes. Throughput Optimized, or ST1, is your go-to for big data and log processing. We're just constantly streaming these large chunks of information. Then you have Cold HDD, or SC1, which is what you use when cost is your #1 priority, and you're storing huge data sets that you just don't need to access very often. Just remember, these are built for bulk, not for speed, and they definitely do not support multi-attach.
Okay, so you've just done it. You've made the most perfect pizza in the world. The crust is incredible, the cheese is melted just right. You don't want to lose that recipe, do you? Of course not. Well, that's exactly where Snapshots come in. It's the AWS way of saving your absolute best work.
To put it simply, a snapshot is just a point-in-time copy of your EBS volume. You can think of it like flash freezing that perfect pizza so you can recreate it exactly as it was anytime you want. This is really the foundation of how we do backups and disaster recovery with EBS.
And the whole process is pretty simple. First, you capture the snapshot. Then from that snapshot, you can restore it to a brand new volume, and it'll be in the exact same state. But here's the magic part. For true disaster recovery, you can replicate that snapshot to a completely different AWS region. So if your main kitchen in Virginia has a problem, you can spin up an identical one in Oregon in just a matter of minutes. How cool is that? Now, what makes Snapshots so incredibly efficient is that they're incremental. See, after that first full copy of your volume, they only save the specific blocks of data that have changed. This makes them super fast and very, very cost-effective. You can use them for data recovery, you can launch new servers from them, and you can even share them with other AWS accounts, which is kind of like sharing your secret recipe with a trusted colleague.
All right, that was a ton of information. Let's take a breath, put on our exam hats, and do a quick rapid-fire review of the absolute must-know facts for your certification. These are the things you absolutely have to walk away with.
First things first, you have to know the definition. If a question on the exam asks you about persistent block-level storage for a single EC2 instance, your brain should scream EBS. It's almost always the right answer.
Second, you gotta remember the performance mantra. You see a scenario describing a busy database or a boot volume that needs fast, frequent, small reads and writes, you should immediately be thinking SSD. That's your high IOPS solution.
And on the flip side, if the scenario is all about processing logs, running a data warehouse, or any kind of large streaming workload where you're just moving a ton of data, your mind should instantly jump to HDD. That's your high throughput solution. And finally, Snapshots. For the exam, you need to know that they are your #1 tool for backups and disaster recovery. And their killer feature? The fact that they're incremental, which saves you a ton of time and a ton of money.
So there you have it. We've covered the oven, the pans, and how to save your best recipes. You now have the fundamental knowledge of the EBS Cloud Kitchen. So the only question left is, now that you've mastered the kitchen, what amazing thing are you going to build first? Thanks so much for watching.